Welcome to this explainer on operationalizing influence, a true masterclass in execution. I'm your lead executive, and look, if you've ever been at the helm of a massive high-stakes project, you know that the theory of leadership and the reality of actually getting things done are often worlds apart. Today, we aren't talking about abstract concepts. We are talking about battle-tested execution.
Absolutely. And I'm your strategic advisor. I've spent my entire career analyzing why projects fail and teaching project management professionals how to ensure they succeed. What we're doing today is a strategic deep dive into project execution. We're going to deconstruct the exact frameworks that turn chaotic, stalled initiatives into streamlined operational successes. Let's just dive right into the reality of the situation.
To really ground this masterclass, I want to anchor us in a very real, very visceral scenario. Picture a complex facility modernization project. It's absolutely critical to the organization's future, and it is fully funded to the tune of $10 million. Now, on paper, that is a project manager's dream, right? The resources are there, the mandate is crystal clear. But in reality, it was completely collapsing under its own weight. We had the money, we had the talent, but we were bleeding time and completely paralyzed. It's the ultimate proof that having a perfect $10 million budget absolutely does not guarantee success. That is just a staggering realization. A $10 million war chest completely stalled. So let's interrogate this a bit. When you say collapsing, what were the exact symptoms you were seeing on the ground? Like, what does the operational bottleneck of a failing matrix actually look like? Oh, it was agonizing. Literally, our senior engineers were completely stuck, just waiting on input that no one felt responsible for delivering. Then we had the clinical operations team, and they were flat out refusing to complete their design reviews because they felt they hadn't been consulted early enough. And while all of this internal infighting was happening, critical facility permits from external regulators were stalled indefinitely. The whole system was just locked up. You know, if you're listening to this and nodding because your own team is paralyzed, you're likely suffering from a textbook, yet incredibly destructive phenomenon. The root diagnosis for that $10 million crisis is boundary ambiguity. This happens when you have unstructured roles, overlapping authority, and confused accountability. It completely paralyzes decision-making and drains resources. It is the precise reason why well-funded, highly critical projects spiral into chaos. I mean, when no one knows where their authority ends and another's begins, execution simply stops. Exactly. The reality of that internal chaos is a highly unstructured web. You've got redundant efforts where multiple people are unknowingly working on the exact same task. You have massive decision lag because of overlapping authority. It's just a constant resource conflict. Everyone is moving fast, but they are all running into each other, which creates a massive bottleneck instead of forward momentum. Right. So how do we fix a web of confusion? Well, we need to transition away from that chaos and explore the radiating ecosystem. Yeah, this framework changed everything for us. It demonstrates that influence operates within a radiating ecosystem. Right at the center, in that inner core, you have the project manager and the core technical team. That was me and my engineers.
Exactly. And as you step outward into the subsequent rings, the dynamics shift. Ring 2 and 3 hold your broader team and governing bodies. But look out toward the outer rings. That's where your regulators and your customers sit. For your $10 million project, those outer rings are the regulators holding up the facility permits and the clinical operations team acting as the internal customer.
And this brings us to a crucial insight, what we call the core paradox of influence. As you navigate from the inner core out to those outer rings, a fascinating inversion happens. In the inner core, you have high formal authority over your team, and the need for heavy strategic communication is relatively low. But as you move outward to solve those stalled permits with regulators, it's the ultimate paradox. Exactly where your risk spikes, your actual power plummets. Your formal authority vanishes to near zero. You literally cannot order a government regulator to approve a permit. Yet, simultaneously, the risk to your project and the demand for intensive strategic communication skyrockets. And that paradox is exactly why our engineers were frustrated and our permits were dead in the water. We were trying to use inner core authority on outer ring stakeholders. To salvage the modernization project, I had to seamlessly pivot from understanding this theoretical ecosystem into operationalizing with RACI. The ultimate tool for establishing those constraints is the RACI matrix. Now, we refuse to treat these as mere textbook definitions. We're looking at definitive operational constraints here. Responsible is your doer. They carry the load. But the accountable is your owner. They carry the risk. Consulted brings that crucial two-way input prior to a decision. And informed simply observes, kept in the loop via one-way updates. These aren't just labels, folks. They are behavioral boundaries. And out of those boundaries comes the absolute golden rule. This is what salvaged our $10 million project. Accountability can never be shared. There must be exactly 1A per deliverable. If you assign 2 people to be accountable, you have actually assigned nobody. Dividing accountability guarantees decision paralysis. It is a hard, non-negotiable constraint. No exceptions. So let's look at the exact operational fix we applied to our biggest bottleneck, the clinical operations team. They were refusing reviews because the role was completely ambiguous. Step 1, we identified them as the bottleneck. Step 2, we actively shifted them to a structured, consulted status. Step 3, and this is absolutely vital, we enforced a hard, unyielding timeline for their two-way input. They were basically told, your expertise is crucial, but we need it by Friday at noon. Finally, step 4, we assigned a single accountable project leader for the final sign-off. The clinical team provided the guidance, but the A made the final call to keep the project moving. That is a masterful pivot. And honestly, that pivot perfectly bridges our 2 frameworks. As we can see, your sphere of influence inherently dictates your matrix. The responsible and accountable roles live squarely in the inner core. That is your high-effort, high-execution zone. The consulted role, like your clinical operations team, lives in the middle rings, providing crucial input without stalling the core engine. And the informed role manages strategic awareness on the outer rings, keeping the operational noise low for executives and regulators, while keeping their awareness high. Seeing the frameworks align like that makes the solution look so obvious in hindsight. But the reality of execution is messy, because even the best plans require troubleshooting. Let's jump into fixing matrix failures. Exactly, because a seasoned project manager systematically exhausts their troubleshooting guide. Let's diagnose a few common matrix failures. First, if your matrix is visually overwhelming, the diagnosis is that you are working with way too large a team. The fix? Break the project down into smaller, manageable components. Don't let the tool become a burden. Second, if you are seeing extreme team burnout and constant delays, you are likely overburdening team members. You need to audit the roles and ensure no single person holds too many R's or A's. And finally, the most common failure. The team completely ignores the matrix. The diagnosis? It was built in a vacuum. A project manager sat in a dark room alone, drank 3 coffees, and assigned roles without talking to a single human being. The fix is proactive communication. You must hold a kickoff to actively brief the team and gain alignment before formalizing any responsibilities. When you apply these definitive constraints, the execution chaos literally disappears. We turned our stalled $10 million facility project into a streamlined success strictly by defining these boundaries. So I'll leave you with a provocative question to challenge your own high-stakes environments. Look closely at your current operations. Is your project collapsing under boundary ambiguity, or have you actively structured your ecosystem for influence?